Hey everyone, welcome. Welcome to our connection water field on Friday. We come together and for the origin stories of the rivers and lakes around the world. And today I'm here with Malini Rajendran, and we welcome you into the connection field. Always you can come here by going to connectionfielddigest.org and join us in our Zoom loving room. Today we're focusing on, this is episode 5, and we're still focusing on the rivers of India, and today it's the Yamuna River in India. And so I'm going to pass it over to Malini to begin. Thank you for joining us, and we'd love to really ripple this out to share with people around the world so that they can really begin to get acquainted with their river and their living river system that really feeds and nourishes their land around them as well. So thank you for joining us, and Malini, it's all yours.
Thank you, Shelley, and thank you everyone for being here. And welcome to this 5th episode of the origin stories of the rivers and lakes from all over the world. Today we are into episode 5, and we are going into the story of the last of the Himalayan rivers that originate in the glaciers of the Himalayan range in the northern part of India. And this is the final river in this region, which is so important and nourishes all the areas and the regions and the people of this region. So this is the story of the river Yamuna. All rivers are celestial beings descended to the earth from the sky as per divine cosmic order. And all rivers, irrespective of which part of the world they are from and which culture they are from, come encoded with cosmic divine code, which is carried by their waters. In fact, each river brings with it a unique myth, a legend, or a mythological explanation that is fascinating in its own way. All rivers about everything are an inspiration to one and all. And yet, we know so very little about our rivers. Rivers carry with them a wide variety of culture, traditions, and faith. And nowhere is it more palpable as it is in India. Rivers are much more than just sources of water. Most rivers in India are considered deities and have stories or myths revolving around them. This is the story of the river Yamuna. Yamuna was called Yami, the daughter of the sun god Surya, and his wife Sharanya is the twin sister of the god of death, Yama. She descends to earth as part of an old prophecy. The Rig Veda describes that she had an excessive love for her twin, Yama, who in turn turns around and tells her to find a suitable match for herself, which she does. She finds a match in Krishna. The tale is further detailed by the 16th century Sanskrit hymn, Yamunakshatam, by the philosopher Vallabhacharya. Here in this story, she descends to meet her beloved, Krishna, and to purify the world, and has been put into verse in the most beautiful form. While the Ganga is considered an epitome of asceticism and higher knowledge and can grant liberation or moksha or ascension, It is the Yamuna who, being a holder of infinite love and compassion, can grant freedom even from death, the realm that her twin brother holds. Vallabhacharya says that she comes down from the Kalinda mountain, and he describes her as the daughter of Kalinda. All rivers are considered as daughters of the mountain kings, giving her the name Kalandi. Yamuna as Kalandi is also very often referred to as the consort of Krishna. The text also talks about her water being of the color of her beloved Lord Krishna, which is dark. Lord Krishna is also called Shyam, which means that which is dark. The river is referred to as Ashita in some of the historical texts. According to popular legend, it is believed that bathing in her sacred waters frees one from the torment of death. But remember the episode in Saraswati? This river is a river of antiquity. She emerges from the Himalayan mountain range at the same time as Saraswati emerges. And if you remember, she used to be in this region, moving towards the west and feeding the Indus Saraswati River, where she was a major tributary of this part of the Saraswati River. Then a cosmic event happened 6,000 years ago, and the Yamuna turned 180 degrees and started flowing westwards alongside her sister, the Ganga. She originates at an elevation of 6,387 meters in what is called the Saptarishi Kund. This is the original source fed by the Champasar Glacier, situated in the upper parts of the massif created by the Bandar Panch mountain range. The Saptarishi Kund is about a half a kilometer in diameter. The water of the nearby glaciers actually flow down into this lake. And this lake is created by the natural slate stones that have emerged in that geological formation. And it is believed, the reason why this is called Saptarishi Kund, this lake that you see here, is because it is believed that the 7 great sages that ever existed on earth, Rishi Kashyap, Atri, Bharatwaj, Vishwamitra, Gautama, Jamadagni, and Vashishta, all together at the same time, performed huge penances at this point, and therefore this lake was called after them. These 7 sages are also considered to be the source of the 7 tribes of humanity that emerged from time in the ancient period. The Saptarishi Kund is located amidst magnificent and enchanting surroundings. In fact, this scenic spot that you see in this picture is at an altitude of 4,420 meters. And 10 kilometers from this lake is what is known as the Yamunotri Temple. The 10-kilometer trek from the Saptarishi Kund starts at the Yamunotri Temple. It is considered to be one of the most difficult treks of the Himalayan region, and it passes through very dense forests, rugged mountain, ice-capped glaciers, and frozen water bodies. Near the temple, this is the Yamunotri temple, and as you can see, the trek begins here and starts moving upwards. Near the temple on the banks of the river, it is believed that the great sage Markandeya sat and wrote the very famous Markandeya Purana. The Puranas are like you have the books in the Bible, the book of Genesis, the book of Moses. The Puranas are the books that were written in ancient times in the continent of Asia. The Yamuna, in fact, is very unique. It defines the state borders between the states of Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand. Then it defines the state borders between Haryana, Delhi, and Uttar Pradesh. And finally, if you see here, the Yamuna goes and joins the Ganga, and after that, she flows as the Ganga. But this region between the Yamuna and the Ganga, the two rivers, is one of the most fertile alluvial soils that you can find anywhere on this planet. And the rivers run parallel, and this gigantic plain is often called the Ganga Yamuna Doab region. In fact, in 1994, a memorandum of understanding was signed amongst the 5 basin states of Himachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Haryana, Rajasthan, and Delhi for the sharing of the waters of the Yamuna. And, you know, in all rivers have been the cradles of some of the greatest civilizations. And here too, some of the empires, the great empires that ruled the major part of India and almost all of North India were situated along this river. And the rivers and their tributaries, which were almost full in those days, used to be the navigable regions through which global trade was carried out, where goods were taken from the interior into the waterways and then brought to the seas, and from the seas taken onto international trade routes. From Uttarakhand, the river flows into the state of Himachal Pradesh, and after passing the Sikh pilgrimage town of Panto Sahib, it travels through the district of Yamuna Nagar into the state of Haryana and then into Delhi. Throughout its bank, till it reaches Delhi, it is full of Sikh pilgrimage sites. There are very famous pilgrim sites of the Sikh community along this river. And as always, rivers are not just about water and people and river banks. They harbor and nourish and support an amazing ecosystem of animals. In her entire 1,300 kilometer stretch from her beginning till she reaches the Ganga, this river has been known to be rich in a diversity of fishes, mainly the carp, the catfish, and for some reason, a non-native fish, the tilapia, which is actually native of Egypt, was introduced into this river. When it was introduced is really not known, but the fact remains that after its introduction, it was found that the crocodile, the gharial, which you see here, which is native to this river body, suddenly its population disappeared. And also, many years ago, in fact, till about a decade ago, large turtles used to be common sight in this river, and they too have mostly disappeared. By far and large, the Yamuna is a reasonably good quality river. It is not that polluted, but after going through a pristine area of 375 kilometers, the moment it enters the region of Delhi and Uttar Pradesh, the river gets highly polluted. The upper region of the river is called the Upper Yamuna, that is from Yamunotri to the Okhla Barrage. It's called the Upper Yamuna Basin. In ancient times, the Yamuna is still surrounded by stories of Lord Krishna. And there is a very famous story that there was a time when a family of very poisonous snakes, to avoid being hunted and killed by the flying bird of Vishnu, Garuda, came into this river and took refuge. And they grew and became so proliferous in this river that the river became poisonous. And it was said that even birds that flew over that river, because of the poisonous fumes that were emerging from this river, would fall down and drop dead. So there is a legend that Krishna was asked to go into the river, who is his consort and his beloved, and she was being poisoned by the snake, and he goes in and he overpowers this 5-headed snake called Kalinga. And in the legend of what is called the Kaliya Daman, he conquers the snake, but then the snake begs for its life, and he then tells the snake, he takes the snake out of the river and he goes and releases it into the ocean. And he says, now you go there and you will not be hunted or hurt by the flying bird Garuda. But the legend of the poisonous snake is being repeated now. In the 22-kilometer stretch of the Yamuna, it is the most polluted part of the river, and it contributes to 80% of the pollution load of the entire 1,300 kilometers of the river. And this stretch of 22 kilometers that you see from this point to this point is barely 2% the length of the river. But where is this pollution coming from? It's coming from households, municipal disposal sites. It's coming as a result of soil erosion, deforestation, chemicals and fertilizers being washed out because of the land being heavily tilled and agriculture being performed on the riverbanks and the floodplains. And this is a region where high industrial areas were developed, and the effluents from these industries, without any treatment or control, were relentlessly and continue to be relentlessly discharged into this river. And yet, faith is such that in spite of the pollution, people still worship this river. And you can see they drink this as part of a worship process. And the idol goddess Durga during Durga festival is immersed in this river. And you can see the toxic pollution frothing on the surface of the river. And yet people don't care, and they still continue to perform whatever needs to be performed as rites. It is also believed that when you are cremated on the ghats of the river, and in fact, two of the main cremation grounds that are run by the government are on the banks of the river, because people complete their cremation and they go and immerse the ashes in the river. They float the ashes off in the river. So it is believed that if you are cremated and your ashes are floated in the banks of the Ganga, you are divinely blessed. Way back in 1993, the government put together, with the help of the World Bank and the United Nations, something called the Yamuna Action Plan. But what was found was the more money that was spent, the dirtier the river got. And where does this pollution come from? It is a practice that people, when they perform any religious rite, they have to take the ashes, when they perform the sacred fire ceremonies in a havan, and they have any other offerings, they are supposed to immerse the ashes in the river. But very often what happens is, along with the ashes, which are biodegradable, and the flowers, there is a lot of plastic that is thrown into the river. And you can see people just bring their bags and bags of ritual offerings, and they throw it into the river. And you can see here women, despite the toxic foam that is floating on the surface of the river at this particular juncture, continue to perform their rites standing in the water. The river is also used as a washing ghat for people to wash clothes. You can see this is a commercial enterprise of people washing clothes in the river. And this is where most of the washermen take their clients' clothes and wash it in this river. The soaps that they use are highly toxic, full of phosphate and full of soda, and this is what is happening. Also, garbage is being dumped in the river, and it is so sad that this is the only part of the river where the river is totally desecrated in this way. And there are garbage dumps wherever people can drop garbage. The garbage is just tossed into the river. And these are the two drains. There are actually 20 drains that discharge their water into the river. But at both ends, at the Najafkar and the Shadara drain, which are at the both ends, one drain is at the entry point of the river, and the second drain is just as the river is leaving. The maximum amount of direct untreated sewage water is discharged into the drain here. And this is a common sight anywhere along the banks during festival season. People go into the river to pick up offerings. Sometimes people throw coins into the river. So all this is just picked up and they don't care, or they've got used to it. And the river also serves as a form of transport for a lot of people who live along the banks, and yet braving the stench, people take a boat ride in the Yamuna. And you can see all the flowers are mostly as part of a religious festival or a rite, rites that happened, which have been just tossed into the river. But Delhi needs the river. And if you can see here, this river from this point to this point, 22 kilometers, has officially been declared as the area of the dead river. Why do we need rivers? And why does a city need rivers? Because it is the only fresh perennial source of fresh water. And for that perennial source of fresh water, the river must flow. The river recharges the aquifers underground. It allows excess rainwater to drain out. And it is also, if properly looked after, managed, and handled, is a source of beauty and recreation. Every river anywhere in the world symbolizes the identity of that region, of that city, of that state, and very often of that country. When a river like the Nile or the Amazon, which flows through the entire country, in fact, flows through more than one country. Rivers are also the most eco-friendly way of transporting in terms of the use and the carbon footprint that the fossil fuels, when you transport goods by road, bring about. Rivers are floodplains, and as the rivers flood, and every river that floods leaves behind nutrients and recharges the groundwater of that region. It is also a community asset. Every river, anywhere in the world, revitalizes communities that depend on it for their living. And communities are brought back to life when rivers flow in the right way. And if a river is not properly managed and properly looked after, silt being prevented from filling its bed because of deforestation upstream and on its banks, the rivers act as flood control. They prevent flooding. So this is the state of the river in Delhi. And I share this with you, not with pride, but with abject pain. And it hurts me. It's the city where I live in. I was born in this city, and to see this river being treated this way. And this river, after she leaves New Delhi, she flows down, continues to flow down southeast, and she is joined by her 4 major tributaries: the Chambal, the Sindh, the Betwa, and the Ken. And after she is joined by these very powerful tributaries, she goes to Allahabad. And here, on the banks of Allahabad, the great kings of yore built fortresses and their summer palaces. And this is the palace, the fort that Akbar built on the banks of the Yamuna. And after she passes through this region, she joins the Ganga at Triveni Sangam. We saw Triveni Sangam when we saw the story of the Ganga. And here she merges the 3 celestial rivers, the Yamuna, the Ganga, and the underground river Saraswati, merge at Prayagraj into what is called the Triveni Sangam. 3 means 3, and Veni means water, the merging of the 3 waters. And Sangam is the merging, the confluence. So she joins the Ganga and henceforth is known no more. This is the end of her entity as the Yamuna. After this, she continues to flow down till she reaches the ocean as part of the Ganga. It is interesting, in 2017, the High Court of the state of Uttarakhand gave an order that the Ganga and its tributary, the Yamuna, be assigned the status of a legal entity, of being a person, entitled to the rights that any person is entitled to. This decision meant that polluting or damaging the rivers is equivalent to harming a person. The courts, in fact, cited the example of the New Zealand Whanganui River, which was also declared to possess full rights of a legal person. And taking this as inspiration, the Indian courts of the state of Uttarakhand gave this order. This development of environmental personhood and merely announcing that the Ganga and the Yamuna are living entities will not save them from significant ongoing pollution. It is only when we honor and respect and love the rivers that humans will prevent pollution and save the rivers. Because every river in every part of the world is divine and holy. Rivers are an important source of available fresh water for the majority of the world's population. However, the scale and demands of urban growth is now posing the single largest threat to river sustainability across the world. We see this happening time and time again. Metropolis, mega cities come up on riverbanks. Industries come up on riverbanks. The river channels are diverted to feed human greed. This has to change. Humanity has to change its perspective on what a river is and how to honor and respect it. And with that, we come to the end of the story of the River Yamuna. And thank you for sharing this time with me.
Thank you, Malini, for always expanding our understanding and delightfully, I have to say delightfully understanding when it comes to mixing the stories in with, the details of the river and how the river flows and the living. And I love that. I didn't know that about that river, about being a living entity. I remember in New Zealand, because I love New Zealand and the Whanganui River. It was beautiful when that happened because it inspired, now I know it reached India too. It inspired so many other people to really bring that forward. So that's pretty exciting.
For me and for Shelley, this is a last ditch effort for bringing people, look, listen, hear your river stories. And with the Yamuna, I felt I had to show the bad and the good. It wouldn't be fair and honest if I didn't share what was going wrong, because we need to learn from that, what not to do.
I love that. And I just want to share for people that are listening on Facebook, and just want a wave to Carmen Curry and other people that are there. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing with your other groups and communities. That part of this, as Malini was saying, part of what we're doing is we're here to inspire you to create the origin story, bring together the origin story of your river. And like Kate said, it takes a lot. And but the beauty of what's happening, this is the 5th episode, is that I'm noticing like all of a sudden last week I had some time and I started to go to the internet and find stuff about the Androscoggin River, and its real indigenous name is the Pajibscot. Now I haven't gone to an indigenous elder to find out, but can I? Might I? Absolutely. And I know just where to go. And, so I'm putting that together. And so on, what did we say, March 26th, hopefully I have enough together. And so we're inviting everyone or anyone who feels like, wow, I want to just go on a little adventure and discover. It's an adventure. Consider that. And it's how you are giving back to the water, because it's creating a small story, and will help you put a PowerPoint together so that you can come into the space and share with us your river. And as we begin to tap into these rivers, like Kate was saying, Yellowstone, and I didn't know that, we're learning so much. And we're feeling that interconnectivity of this amazing living system of water, right? And it's bringing us home to itself. So that's why we're doing this. And so we invite you to be willing to explore. And if you need help, both Malini and myself are here to help you. And
seen your face. I would love to explore more the Mississippi River, because I've been it leading me back into different places. So I don't know what kind of story I can tell about it, but it's just like interest in these rivers calling me back. And I'm like, really? What do you want to say? And carrying the name makes it more significant, like returning home, because that's a vibration that my father gave it to me. Who knows what he was visioning, I don't know.
I think you brought up something really perfect. Yeah, is simply ask, what's the story the river wants to tell us, right? So it might not be, you might weave in, it's always incredible to weave in the native wisdom, because there is something, and I will share that one of the things here is, the river here is known as the Androscoggin, but when I went to research, and I discovered that it actually down on this end it's called the Pajibscot. And anything about energy, that one of the things that, as being part of our dowsing consortium and working with water, is that there's something very powerful about beginning to call back the water's name to itself. And there is a relationship that happens that I can't really speak to. It's an inner experience. And so I invite everyone to at least find out what that indigenous name of the rivers or watershed near you. Also, that people call it Merry Meeting Bay. So I discovered this yesterday. People call this, I'm at the Delta where the Androscoggin, the Pajibscot comes and meets what was called the Quabacook, now called Merry Meeting Bay. And what's interesting, when it got its English name, it was named, I discovered yesterday from somebody I was with, that it was because there was a lot of merrymaking happening along the river. And it wasn't holding that same resonance. And that's what we really want to speak to in our, coming back to that sacred relationship with our own inner waters, to our rivers, is to begin to build this, awareness and relationship to bringing that water, communicating with that water from its blueprint, and honoring it in a way that it's never been honored. So with that, I pass it back to you, Malini, and anyone else who has something to share, and then we can.
I think Tony had something to share.
Well, as always, I really appreciated the presentation, Malini. It's always nice to learn about all that information. That I'm just so busy processing it for now. I think I'm mostly in listening mode, but I'm sure there's stuff to say that'll come in time. But again, I really appreciate the time you take to put these presentations together and then present them. Thanks a bunch.
For me, it's been a learning journey. I didn't know most of the stuff, but every river that I started researching, I developed a relationship with it. And like you said, Shelley, when you start researching a river, it starts talking to you. And from that relationship you build as you read and learn, what needs to be shared also automatically emerges, because when it comes from the heart, the river's telling you, tell this about me, share this about me, this is what's important. And because you can go into Google and find so many images, which one do you pick? And then when you build this relationship with the water, and I haven't seen most of the places that I show, but a relationship builds, and the water and the river tells you, this is what you need to show. Look at this. And it's amazing. And I can feel, like you always say, Shalini, it is the connection water field. That field actually creates that love and that resonance. And this year we will build that resonance.
We love you. Thank you for joining us. The Connection Waterfield is found on Good of the Whole, and you can come in, you can go to the Facebook page, Good of the Whole Facebook page, to see these videos if you've missed it, and or go to, we'll be adding them to Good of the Whole YouTube, and you can find them on Infinite Life YouTube as well. So yeah, join us. We're here every Fridays at 1:30. Don't forget to go to Codes for Healthy Earth, and there's the World Water Law. This is World Water Year 2021, and sign that and learn more about that powerful proposal. So with that, we love you. Thank you for joining us here. Malini, so beautiful. We'll see you next week, and blessings to everybody. Thank you so much.